And tip number 7, really, none of these other tips literally do not matter if you don't. If you're trying to take on the Sanctum of Rebirth on release, like myself, there's a few things you might want to consider beforehand. If you'd like to see me fight Sanctum of Rebirth live on release day, I'm going to be streaming it here on YouTube along with over on twitch.tv. All the descriptions are set below us. What even is Sanctum of Rebirth? So the reason why I'm super excited about this is because I've never seen this before, and I have seen it in other MMOs as well, is when you just go into a boss fight and it's just boss fight after boss fight after boss fight, and that shit is so cool. I love it. 3 bosses on release, fighting them back to back to back, giving you some absolute banger rewards, like the brand new dual wield tier 95 magic set. That is going to be super cool. I'm not going to be able to afford them, but that's why we're going to try and farm our own and see what we can do with that big fat upgrade. Additionally, a big thing about Sanctum of Rebirth is that it is pretty new player friendly, okay? So they're introducing a brand new feature, right? Of if you die, you don't like get kicked out of the fight. A lot of times if you fighting in other boss fights, you die, you gone. You are meeting death, paying taxes, re-rolling. Instead, at this one, if you end up getting killed in combat, you end up getting knocked down, and then if you get knocked down, you can pretty much stand back up over a certain period of time, and you just have like a slight debuff for like a minute where you deal less damage, but you're still in the fight. You can still close out the kill if you end up failing and making a mistake. It gives you that extra kick in the bum, like get back in there, kid. So I think that's gonna be really good for learners, and it's gonna be super encouraging because boss releases are really hard. I'm not gonna lie, like no one knows the meta, no one knows what they're doing. Going in there swinging sticks. If you're really going in there and trying to prepare and go into the boss fight, it's really hard when you go in there and get your absolute poopy kicked in for the next hour, 2-3 hours on release, trying to figure out what you got to do. So it's really exciting that they're making a way that it makes new players and people who've never done a boss release or who are too afraid to take on harder content. This is a great step into that. And I don't think, some people were controversial that it's going to make it too easy, but I really think that if it introduces more players into this type of content, that is something that is really worth it, and I don't think it's going to be a downside to this at all, and I hope people really take advantage of that, and that's partially why I'm making this video, because I want to make sure that you can get in on that stuff, like even though you've been playing Runescape for a while, or if this is your brand new first boss that you're going to be going into, there's some stuff to consider, okay? So rolling into these tips of mine, let's start off with number 1, top off those supplies. You may not even realize how low you may be on some things, right? For me, I need to top off on a lot of my potions. I'm missing some sarabrews. I have to remake adrenaline renewals. I have to get more prayer restores, blubbers, rocktail soups, prayer sarabrews, restores, protection powders, penance powders, any type of food that you may be using, and whatever you use in your available presets. A lot of that stuff for me is going to be like the adrenaline renewals, maybe possibly topping off on overloads if I need to, and going off on whatever food that I'm going to be planning to use. A lot of times people like to use the highest end food that they can going into these fights because no one knows the level of damage you're going to be taking, but it's going to be much better for you to have that stuff prepped beforehand so that you can go into the fight with everything you may have for whatever duration you may need. Okay, this can include your Ripper demons, your Great Calgarian demons, Blood Reavers, Hellhounds. If you go in with Pack Yaks, the scrolls for them, bolts, arrows, runes, necromancy runes, getting specific type of gear that you may want. So you don't want to be going in there with necromancy, you want to try out magic, you might want to be looking into items that will help you with that, looking for the tank magic items, going for any of the other tank necromancy gear, maybe want to go in with melee. You never know what's going to be working and what you may want to try on release. So I would recommend that you get whatever you need to top off those presets and top off your supplies so you're going in there with maximum efficiency and less downtime, okay? Number 2 is going to be checking those presets, right? You don't even, sometimes you may just look in your bank and see, oh, I need this and that. Actually check your presets, see what you may need. Maybe you may have, some of these may be old, some of these may not have the things you had prior before, and you may have not been playing for a while and you're revisiting the game. Double check what you have in your bag. Make sure you have whatever loadouts you have. Prep those loadouts beforehand and see what you can get prepared. See what you can get prepared before that and go into the fight as steel hardened and steadfast as you possibly could. Number 3, this is going to be Number 3 is actually one that I really didn't even think about, and this is my first time doing it myself, and that is going to be see who's available. With this being a brand new boss fight, you never know who will be around to do it. And if you have some cool clanmates, if you got some good friends over on Discord, or if you got some buddies who haven't played RuneScape in a while and they've been waiting on some new content, hit those guys up. See if they want to go and do this boss fight with you. Going into it with friends is going to be way better than you fighting and slugging on your own. So hit up those buddies, see whether anybody wants to check this stuff out, and network with them. You know, you never know if someone's going to be able to carry you or if you're going to be carrying them. And when you guys succeed together, it's always more fun, man. It's an MMO. That's why you want to do this stuff with buddies, right? And that's something that I'm doing for the very first time. A lot of times when I do these boss fights, I'm taking them on by myself, and I'm glad that I'm going to be using a buddy for this one, and it's going to be great. Okay, number 4 is going to be, if you haven't done PVM in a long time, I would encourage you to actually, over this next week, do some bossing. Fight somebody... Fight somebody that you're very confident with. Like, if you're very good with Nex, you're very familiar with... if you're very familiar with Nex, if you're familiar with Calphite King, or any bosses you feel like you have great proficiency in, I would recommend going and revisiting them, because if you haven't done PVM in a long time, getting into those rotations and trying out the abilities and going all these things, especially if you have not played since the combat beta update, you're going to be feeling a huge change in a lot of abilities, prayers, your buffs, all that stuff, and you're just going to see how the overall tempo of boss fights have changed and how the overall feel of combat has changed as well. So I highly recommend you just go in, fight a boss that you may not have fought in a while, and get familiar with the rotations that you got to do for melee, mage, ranged, or necromancy, and get into that feel so that when you go into the boss fight of Sanctum of Rebirth, you are just set out the gate. You're just good to go, locked and loaded, lethal, and ready to do what you got to do on day of release. So again, number 1, fight a boss that you're familiar with, get those rotations down, and get punching. Number 5 is going to be checking your perks. So this is in relation to invention. If you haven't perked out your gear, I would highly recommend double checking, seeing what you got. Maybe you threw a gizmo in there that you did really long ago when you were doing a specific thing, and you no longer need that, right? So double check them, see what you need. Like for me, when I was getting ready for doing this, I went through and checked all of my gear. I did not even realize I never perked out my augmented elite Serenic, and that's why it's so bad, outside of it being bad in general. I didn't even realize that I was hindering myself but not properly checking all of my gear and making sure I was good to go. So I'm gonna have to make myself some new gizmos and get this more perked out so that we roll into the boss fight as strong and as lethal as we possibly can. So double check those gizmos and maybe make some upgrades if you may have some extra coin laying around. And if you're not sure, you may have some gizmos laying around that you may be able to swap into some of these gizmo slots on the fly if you do feel like that is necessary, and you'll just have those laying around silly-nilly. And you'll just have those perks laying around available to you if needed. That includes your weapons. Double check your weapons. See what you may have on these things, because you never know what might be old and what you may be able to scrap, upgrade, or just keep because it's still your best in slot. Okay, number 6 is going to be when you're actually going into this fight, like you got to really think about it. It's going to be tough. If you've never done a boss fight on release, it is a grueling and super taxing experience. You are going in and you're going to get slapped around non-stop. I want you to be able to take that note that you're going to lose, you're going to fail a lot before you succeed. And that's going to be pretty breaking, and that's going to be pretty annoying, and it's going to be really tough. And I want you to be able to just go in there, fight, swing, and do your best to get in better every single fight that you go into. Improve one part of it every single time, and see what you can take away with it at the end of that fight, okay? And once you go in there, don't let that mental break. Don't rage quit. Don't fucking take it out on your teammates. Just do your best to hunker down and improve for yourself, and just keep pushing through. It's going to suck, but you're going to be able to get through it. And you know what? Sometimes learning these stuff all by yourself is it's golden MMO, man. It's perfect gaming. There is no path. You lay your path out for yourself and just prepare for some stuff not to work, and that's going to be okay. It's going to be awesome and super fun once you finally get that first kill on each of these big bosses. And I just want you to be ready for that, and just don't go in with a good positive mindset that it's going to be tough and that you're just going to have a ton of fun. And tip number 7, really, none of these other tips literally do not matter if you don't do this one thing. Let's have fun, dude. You're playing a video game. You're going to be going in there slugging, fighting for your entire life every single time you're in that boss arena, and I want you to have the pinnacle of fun. I hope you have a great time. I want you to enjoy it, have a couple laughs, challenge yourself, and enjoy it. I am really looking forward to it, and I think I'm going to have a ton of fun with this entire experience. I've been looking forward to this update for many months, and I can't wait to see it on July 22nd. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch to catch the whole event live, and I hope to see you there, and good luck. Have fun.